welcome to Cnbc TV18 special show from the Global Entrepreneurship Summit here in Hyderabad. And Saina, like we just did see, even Ivanka Trump managed to take time off from a very busy schedule to go check out the Golconda Fort. Have you managed to?
Not yet, Nithya. It's been a day and a half, but haven't had that opportunity yet. But maybe I'll get there for dinner tonight. So there's hope.
There's hope. Yeah. Well, speaking about Ivanka Trump, she did address that opening plenary session earlier today where she focused upon the theme of the summit really, which is women first and prosperity for all. Let's listen in.
I see the landscape changing, and especially when you look at the next generation coming up. I think women don't view themselves as purely providing care for their families. They want to work. In many cases, they need to work to support their families. Men, similarly, are taking a much more active approach in raising children and participating in the family than in previous generations as well. And we see this happening on different scales, but all over the world. And I see this generational shift that is very exciting, because when you think about true equality, it starts with having this level playing field and sharing the responsibilities, domestic responsibilities, as well as workplace responsibilities much more equitably. So I love the natural shift that we have happening, but I think talking about these issues, and I think men talking about the fact that they're not financial providers alone, that they want to participate, that they want to be involved parents and fathers is incredibly important as well.
In fact, I even managed to catch up with Cherie, Blair, who shared the stage with Ivanka Trump, and asked her about what really her foundation was doing for women empowerment here in India. What exactly is your organization doing here in India? Some of the recent projects that you've lined up in the pipeline, and is the government supporting you and many other organizations like yours to put women on the roadmap when it comes to economic development in India?
Well, we've been doing a number of levels, working with women at different levels. So, for example, we have been working with educated women who are starting their own businesses, and we did a project with the American Embassy here called We Can, and it was a business competition for young women, and we took 150 women and they did a course and some support for 3 weeks, at the end of which they produced a business plan. From that, we took a smaller group of women, in fact 25 women, and then we gave them intensive training and support with their business plan. And then finally, after 6 months, we selected 5 of those for a competition where they won money and they won support for their businesses. So one of those women who's actually here today, for example, is a young woman whose business is non-dairy ice cream. Wow. She's a vegan herself. She's very interested in a healthy, gluten-free product, and she started this non-dairy ice cream, and she got through the entire competition and has now got some seed funding to put that into reality. And the American Embassy is actually taking some of that for their own staff canteen in Delhi. Or another woman that we've been supporting is Priyanka, and she was a journalist, actually.
Interesting.
And she realized that in her office, the men, she wasn't earning as much as the men for a start, but even so, the men with their money knew about investing in the stock exchange, investing in, and the attitude to her money was that it was for shoes and handbags. And so she actually left her job as a journalist and set up a whole program which is called Wow Money Gym. And it gives women like you and me advice about how to invest their money and to actually use their money to make more money. And she started that through groups, and through our mentoring platform we've been supporting her for a whole year, engaging in expanding that business. At the other end, we're working with Mandeshi Bank in Pune, and I went and visited there just recently. And Mandeshi Bank is a microfinance bank and gives loans, small loans to women to help them grow and expand their businesses. And we combined with them and gave a program of training to those women, so that as well as getting the money, they were given better ideas about how to use that money to make it go further, to make their businesses more successful, and in particularly in things like diversification. So one of the women we worked for actually was a woman who traditionally her family was involved in broom making. is
very important in India.
Very important in India. In fact, I went along and she was showing me how they did it. But through the loan she got, she was able to develop a machine that she designed herself to actually help her cut the sticks more quickly. And then we also taught her about diversifying her businesses. She's very good at making chutneys. And so she started making that, and indeed she is now making more money through the chutney business, which she goes and sells into Mumbai, than she is from the brooms.
Great. If I can ask you, you did mention gender diversity and payment disparity at the workplace. So one final question, what are the challenges really that lie ahead as far as India is concerned to bridge the gender diversity gap, one, as well as the urban and rural divide, which also is a big problem that our country faces?
Well, in relation to bridging that gap, I mentioned on the platform that, of course, only 27% of Indian women over the age of 15 are actually engaged in the marketplace at all.
Yes.
And so this is a huge resource for India that at the moment India is not fully utilising. And when you think that 67% of the women graduates from your universities, with whom you've invested so much resources, are not actually entering the labour force, then the first thing to do is, well, how do we get these women more engaged? And we talked a little bit about that, making sure that firms are female friendly, making sure that firms have proper family friendly policies, making sure that people take women seriously so they don't just think that you're actually only interested in shoes and handbags and it's pin money.
Fantastic. Ms. Blair, it's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you. Thanks so much for joining us in this interview.
Thank you.
So empowering women, bridging the pay gap between men and women, and that brings us actually to something that Chanda Kochhar spoke about in the panel in the morning as well, which is what's happening in the corporate world, how we can get women to stay on longer in the workforce, and how we can make work culture actually more equitable, right?
Yeah, let's listen into actually her talking about how ICICI Bank is ensuring that the women feel more included in the workspace. Talk about the banking space. What can be done by private banks like yourself to actually encourage women to join the workforce and exclude the gender diversity that women face at the workforce?
Well, first of all, I must say that Indian banking sector is really setting an example for the world as a whole. You do not have any country in the world where almost 40% of the banking assets are led by women. So I think India is actually much further compared to the rest of the world. But you know what? The Indian banking sector, and I think all over the corporate sector, is doing already is to encourage more and more women join in. And we are seeing that the rate of addition of women in the workforce is actually increasing. I think from there on, what goes on the next is to create a kind of a merit-oriented environment in the organization. And I think that is a very important factor, because that is what gives women the courage and the confidence to say that, we will not be discriminated against. They're not seeking special benefits. They're only saying, as long as we put in our hard work and that's recognized without any discrimination, we are here to contribute our bit to the hard work and whatever is required. And I think it's on that basis that women flourish, on the basis of their own capability. So merit-oriented, environment, I think that's what many organizations are creating. And the last I would say is that what's important is to ensure that women do not give up when it's the most difficult time in their life stage, which is when they are starting their families.
Absolutely.
And I think there is a lot more that organizations can do. At least what we do at the bank is we really track their life stage needs. And when women really need it, we actually enable women to work from home over an elongated period. And in a way that they are part of the entire main workforce, and they do not lose out on their career progression if they are working through our system of I work from home. We also do something very, very peculiar, I think, is to say that if a mother of a young child that is up to 3 years old has to travel overnight for work, we pay for the child's travel as well as the accompanying caretaker's travel, so that the mother can travel with peace of mind. So I think these are some specific things that we need to do, either around safety, security of women or around life stage. But beyond that, women really grow on their own merit, and that is what we have to enable.
Absolutely, ma'am. At the Entrepreneurial Summit, what exactly will enable you to invest, or when you talk about the next big idea, do you think India is ready for that big investment in the startup ecosystem?
I think India's startup ecosystem is already growing tremendously. NASSCOM study said that there are 3 to 4 startups that are coming up every single day. Not just that, even the access to finance. So, the number of private equity players in India have grown more than 40% in the last 3 years or so, and many of them never existed in India.
Sure.
Not just that, I think 70% of these startups are being floated by people who are less than 35 years of age. So there is a lot that is happening in the startup ecosystem in India. What we need to do is to just keep encouraging that and, take it forward.
Embracing technology, are we ready for that in India?
I think in India, digital payments, fintech, around the whole banking, the way banking is, absorbing digital payments and the customers are absorbing digital payments, I think India is actually setting some next practices for the world.
Thank you so much.
On that note, let's take a break. But coming up is another power woman, Vani Kola, one of India's first and most powerful VCs with Kalaari Capital. So keep watching this special presentation.